Sorry, I don't know what happened. I got disconnected. My network wasn't able to support whatever was going down. So hopefully everyone who was there can come back and watch. Like I said, welcome to Waste Free Edmonton's Instagram Live. I'm sorry for that feed to cut out. Hopefully that won't happen again, especially in the middle of our conversation. So sorry about that. But yes, welcome to Waste Free Edmonton's Instagram Live. This is our fourth Wine and Waste that Waste for Edmonton has hosted. So every first Wednesday of the month, Emma and I go live and we talk about waste issues in Edmonton. And I'm really excited for this week's episode. I'm just waiting on Emma, and we're having some technical difficulties, so we'll kind of see where that goes. But right now, I can tell you that this week we're going to be focusing on plastics, particularly single-use plastics, how plastics are recycled, how most plastics aren't recycled, and why it's important for single-use plastic laws. So I'm really excited about that because I think it's something that's really important that not only Edmontonians are facing, not only Albertans are facing, not only Canadians are facing, but humans on planet Earth are facing. And I think that everyone has to be part of the solution because everyone, I can guarantee most people have used plastic or use plastic in their life because it's so easily accessible. So it's important that we manage that waste appropriately and properly because right now we aren't. It either gets burnt in incinerators and just adds more pollution to the atmosphere, or the global north ships their plastic waste to poor countries that don't have the facilities to process those plastics, and that's wrong and shouldn't happen. Everyone should take responsibility for their own waste. So it's critical that our government officials and us as citizens take action and take accountability for the waste that we create instead of dumping it into the ocean and other places where it doesn't get sorted properly. So I think we're just still having some technical difficulties on Emma's side or my side. I'm not 100% sure what the solution would be here. I'm going to invite Emma, but it looks like Emma needs the latest version of Instagram to go live. Emma, I think you need to update your Instagram. I just tried to invite you to go live, and that's what it said. It says Art Ventures Yeg will need the latest version of Instagram to join. So maybe now that Emma knows she needs to update, we can see where that goes, and I will try to ride this train on my own until Emma can join. So no sweat. So I think most of us know that plastics are a petroleum byproduct. So what happened after we had discovered how to access fossil fuels, there was a byproduct it's called naphthalene, I think. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but that's what they called it. And it was this byproduct of fossil fuels, particularly petroleum oil, that when they converted raw petroleum oil into usable petroleum oil, there was this leftover. It was like 10 to 15% byproduct that they were just like, this is no use, so let's just store it and build it up. And then a couple scientists developed a way to use that material and make it into plastic, and that's and dispose of them. And at the time, it seemed like a miracle, but now we know that all of that waste has just accumulated over decades, and we have nothing to do with it. And we have tried the industry, the petrochemical industry, said that all of these things, all of these plastics would get recycled efficiently and get given a second life and be put back into the economy through recycling. And so everyone was on the recycling train for a couple decades, and then we found out that that was not happening to the extent that the petrochemical industry told everyone it was happening. And I actually have a number here for you. As of 2019, according to Environment Canada, only about 9% of plastics consumed in Canada actually get recycled. So that's pretty terrible. 9% is atrocious for a recycling rate. The rest of it, either, I think about 4%, yeah, 4% goes into energy conversion and incineration, and the rest of it just ends up in landfills or the ocean, or it gets shipped overseas. So that's not good. Any 9% is horrifically failing grade if we're talking about a grading system. And Emma's finally here. Yay, we did it.
So many. I'm sorry. I'm horrible.
You're not horrible. You are amazing, and I'm glad that you are.
Sorry.
And anyone who's watching knows that it wouldn't be Wine and Waste without you. They were just listening to me blab on about plastics. And yeah, so I'm glad you're here.
Yes. Sorry for the scare.
So I was doing a rough.
I'm not even ready to speak because I'm just over the moon that I figured it out. Yeah, I appreciate your patience and figuring out that I needed to update. I was wondering, the request to join was just gone, like wasn't a choice.
And I just want to point out that are we hyper real? Yes, there's just a smidge room of improvement, like 90% improvement rate, I think there. But yeah, like everyone, thank you for joining us. Thank you for enduring our technical difficulties. This is Wine and Waste. I am Shawn. Below me is Emma. We are with Waste Free Edmonton. Waste Free Edmonton is a non-for-profit, grassroots, volunteer-led organization that's ultimate goal is waste reduction in the city of Edmonton. So we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate you following us. Yeah, this is our Wine and Waste for March. In February, we didn't do an Instagram Live. Instead, we did a date night, a community date night where we watched a movie together. It was so much fun. It was really cute. The Netflix watch party caused a little technical problems. Clearly, that's an ongoing theme for us right now. But the conversation afterwards, we had about like 20 to 25 people show up for the Zoom call, and it was just fantastic and so heartfelt. And I love this city, and I love the people in this city, and I'm so glad that there's so many people who are interested in reducing their waste.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was really nice. Like I love connecting with you once a month, Shawn, but it was really nice to connect and see faces from some of you who join us in the comments. It was nice to actually get to speak with you as well and hear what everyone had to say. So yeah, so we are back to our regular Wine and Waste. Like Shawn said, we're going to mostly be talking about plastic. We did share, I don't know if you saw in our feed, we just passed it on from the Eco Warrior, I believe was the Instagram account that identifies different kinds of plastic. So we'll talk about some of those. I know Shawn was just coming up with kind of the story behind plastic. Was there anything else that you needed to add before I interrupted?
I don't think so.
I was in and out, so I honestly didn't even get to hear.
Everyone got the gist of it if you didn't know the history of plastic. It's a petroleum byproduct that was this miraculous invention, and then decades later we're like, oh no, it's poisoning our oceans, our ecosystems, and all of us because we're not disposing of it properly. Oh no. So that's what brings us here, because we want to talk about why some of that stuff doesn't get recycled, and B, like strategies for how we can reduce our plastic waste. Particularly as citizens, I know reducing your plastic waste as an individual is excellent and a great way to not only feel good about the impact that you're having, but also reduce your overall waste. But as individuals, we can only do so much. So there is a larger activist slash holding your governments accountable to implementing policy. And so we're going to have some tips and tricks for you coming up and things you can participate in. And yeah, so I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that, Emma?
No, I'm just staring. I have my giant recycling bin here.
Yay, we're going recycling bin diving.
I used to bring this bin. It's full of examples when we were able to still visit classrooms and do our in-school field trips. And I would always ask the kids, what does this symbol mean? And everybody would say, recycle. And then we would kind of unpack it a little bit. So in our most recent post on Instagram, which I believe is also shared to Facebook, it says just because this symbol is on it doesn't mean that it will get recycled. So if you have any like recyclables and you notice that with a number in it, that number is the resin code. And what it's actually doing is identifying the type of plastic that it's made of. It's not necessarily saying this will get recycled. And numbers like 7 and I think 3 are actually really difficult to recycle. So it's almost a guarantee when you see that, despite having the recycle symbol on it, it's very unlikely that that will actually get recycled into something new. So we're always advocating that recycling isn't the solution to our plastic problem. We need to really refuse plastic first and reduce what we don't need.
I think that's part of the reason why for me, as I through my waste journey, learning about recycling, it was so devastating to learn how little actually gets recycled, because I remember growing up about how much importance is placed on recycling. You know, for those of you who haven't seen the Resin Codes, there's codes 1 to 7, and they all have distinct categories. And like Emma said, like collected, would just get shipped off to other countries that didn't have either the infrastructure or the what's the word I want to look for? The mechanisms for saying, no, we don't want that plastic. They would just take it and just dump it somewhere and leave it. So that's the resin identification codes are a good way of industry being like, look, we know what we're doing. Like, we labeled all of them differently. We'll separate them. We'll recycle them. But they really don't do that. And it's just a way for industry to kind of shirk responsibility for paying for recycling. Because usually it gets downloaded, that responsibility and that cost gets downloaded onto municipalities and taxpayers, which I think is baloney.
Well, and the other thing to think about too is if all of the plastic that you are buying, like I just learned this like a year or two ago, that anytime you're buying food that comes in plastic, that's 100% brand new plastic. Like, it has to be. They can't sell food, even if it's those little like black plastic trays that like your portobello mushrooms come on, or like, it has to be brand new. Otherwise they can't serve food on it. So if it's constantly made from brand new plastic and lots of it's not getting recycled, like, even if it's recyclable, is it like, it's, you need to be using stuff that's from recycled plastic, right? Like, if it's always from yeah. It like, Emma, we constantly talk about that recycling illusion, the shattering of that illusion and the impacts it has when you're venturing out into the waste world. And this is just another one that's just massive, that hits you like a sack of bricks when you're like, oh, well, at least we have recycling, you know, that's good. And then you're like, oh, no, we don't have recycling. And then even if it does get recycled, often it's not recycled into something that's easily recyclable. It's downcycled into something that's like impossible to recycle. So you're really only giving it like one more chance before it becomes like a plastic log that it won't be recycled.
So what is there anything, Emma, that you find yourself using regularly that you're kind of like, oh, I use this, but I know that it doesn't get recycled? And like, what products do you give you the most pain?
In the winter time, when I don't have my garden and I don't have fresh greens, I eat a lot of salad, and it comes in those like, not the, I don't, are they still clamshells when they're the giant ones?
Yeah, I think they would still be referred to as clamshells.
So, but like to alleviate my guilt, I use those as little greenhouses for starting my seeds. So every single one that has come into my house is still, my poor partner is still somewhere in my house. So I have lots of them in use right now with my seeds in them. But I also we have this like awkward, weird supporting wall, and I have a bunch of plants sitting on top of it. And I can't fit like what are those things called that you put underneath your plant pots to catch all the water so it doesn't wreck?
The drip trays?
Yeah, I can't fit those up there. So I've been cutting the top half of these clamshells off and putting all of my plant pots in them.
That is actually a great idea. I had never thought about that before.
I'll
That
send
is
you a picture
great.
later. So yeah, all of my salad plastic shells, I wish I'm gonna learn, like I need to find a spot in my home where I can just grow greens for myself year round, because I eat them a lot, and it always hurts my soul when I'm at the grocery store and I'm like, yeah, just grab this giant thing, and I always eat it all. Like I make sure none of it goes to waste. But yeah, definitely those. What's your
I saved mine. I brought it with me because I love making smoothies at home. And I also like when things were more open and I was working, I would go to Booster Juice all the time. And luckily, Booster Juice has not only did they start coming out with compostable straws, which I thought was very interesting, but they had reusable. You could buy like a Booster Juice mug, like cup, that looked exactly like the disposable cups they give away, like the paper cups. And so I always loved like getting that refilled and taking it
are
in.
they
But it
paper
looked
now?
exactly like. Sorry?
Are they? I stopped going to Booster Juice forever ago because I
Yeah,
thought
they
they were
have
styrofoam.
paper cups and compostable straws now.
I had
Um,
no idea. I'm
yeah.
still in
So
the days of like, don't go because there's styrofoam cups. Don't do it, Emma.
no, they really tried to pivot in the last like 2 years, which is really nice to see. Um, it's not everything, but at least it's an effort, and I can concede that on their part. Yay, Booster Juice. But yeah, I make smoothies all the time, but because like I use frozen fruit so much, they come in those plastic bags, these big ones. Um, this is my label up here. My partner and I live with a bunch of people, so we write gay on everything to know, so people know that it's our food. But yeah, a tip with plastics to know whether it's recyclable or not is the stretch test. And if it doesn't stretch, it doesn't get recycled. I didn't actually look what number this has on it. I don't even know if it does have a number.
I think
Which
lots of
is
times
sad.
those type don't. But yeah, if
Yeah.
you other one like if
Paper bags because
are
I
you
would
still
buy.
there? I didn't get
Yeah,
cut off.
I can hear and see you. Can you hear and see me?
It went away. It went away. You were completely gone for a bit. But yeah, so I have in my recycle relay bin like this little tortilla bag. When you press your thumb and it gives a little bit, it's got that stretch. That'll get recycled. And this actually has the number on it somewhere. It's number 4 resin code. So if we look back, we actually have this.
I have the Resin Codes fresh right now.
That's
So
awesome.
number 4 is LDPE, so low density polyethylene. So it's like bottles, containers. It says pails, crates, barrels, pipe, IBC, geoliner, pond, and plastic bags.
On my list that I also have, it'll also say shopping bags and squeezable bottles. But yeah, so that one should get recycled. This one's a number 5 though. which lots of ice cream containers and margarine containers are made of this as well. But there's no like that's not getting recycled.
No.
So sometimes that kind of thing will influence my buying decisions. Usually I just try to find the one that has no plastic. And I've also been making a really big effort to make stuff homemade. Tortillas though never are, like, they're always awkward. So I can't make good tortillas at home by myself. Like good for dips and stuff, but not good for actually like wrapping. They don't.
I think this is a good time to highlight the delicacy of dealing with the shame complex as it pertains to a zero waste lifestyle and acknowledging your waste and auditing your own waste. Is that shaming yourself isn't going to help anyone, because it can feel like, I know how bad that feels to buy something or have something that you're like, oh, I could try and make this myself, but it's not as convenient. For me, I think that individual choices are really important, but it's also accountability to like the producers is huge for me. And I think that the recycling terminology and message that stands now is it's very targeted to individuals and individual consumption. And like I said earlier, whereas that is important, I think it's so much more important for consumers to come together and demand more like eco-friendly packaging, because the way the world is set up is that you can't live in a city and be completely self-sufficient. You can't grow your own food for the most part.
Not in our climate. Oh, kudos to anyone who does. I really wish.
Yeah, in the summertime, sorry, go ahead.
Have you written to any companies lately about their packaging?
What's interesting is I was starting to I actually message my government representation quite often and send them emails about it, particularly as it pertains to single-use plastic bans and like for me composting, because I want to see community composting everywhere. But I wanted to start up a letter writing campaign with Waste for Edmonton, where we would target the 10 top plastic polluters in the world as per Break Free from Plastics waste audit from last year. And that was supposed to roll out in February. We just hit some strides and hiccups and life getting in the way. But I'm hoping that I can start up in March with Coca-Cola, who is the #1 company responsible for plastic pollution. So it hopefully can do something if we can get enough people to write to them. I'm sure it's on their radar, but it's one of those things where I don't think that they'll do out of the goodness of their heart or the betterment of the planet. I think it definitely has to come from regulations. I wish that they would do it for the betterment of the planet and just the goodwill, for the common good. But I do think that government regulations is what necessary to keep those large corporations accountable and responsible for the waste that they create, because the consumer only have power as a collective, and our biggest collective force is government.
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
Now.
Yeah, Coca-Cola's way up there. Who else is on the top? I know Nestle's way up there.
Pepsi. Yeah, I have the list. I can get it here for you. If you want to talk for a sec, I can dig it up.
My most recent letter that I wrote, and there's another thing that's been driving me crazy about single-use packaging. But the most recent letter I wrote was the last time I went to the grocery store, they didn't have, I tried to buy my peanut butter from Adams in the glass jar, and all they had was Kraft, and it was like, we need it from peanut butter. So I bought Kraft begrudgingly, came home and wrote them a letter. And another thing, speaking of that, if you guys are putting those, your peanut butter plastic containers in the recycling, make sure the lid is off. If you have any plastic containers and the lid is on, that gets sorted out and it doesn't get recycling. So whether it's a food container, a shampoo bottle, your peanut butter lids, yogurt or margarine containers, if it has the container and the lid, if the lid is on, it won't get recycled. So make sure you're taking the lid's off.
I think that's the thing that gets a lot of people too, is sorting your recycling can be really confusing. Even as someone who has gone through master composter recycler training and, you know, keeps fairly up to date with recycling news, sometimes it's overwhelming to remember what can actually be recycled and what goes where, and just how, if you've ever been to the MRF, which is the recycling sorting facility that Edmonton has, and it's overwhelming to see the amount of waste that goes through their system. And a lot of it, as it stands right now, a lot of the MRF gets like hand sorted first. So there's like people working on the line, picking out what they can. Not everything goes through, or not everything gets picked out that isn't recycled. I know I've definitely thrown stuff in my blue bag that I was like, that doesn't get recycled. That was a mistake. And sometimes even when they're looking at the blue bags, if they notice more unrecyclable material in it, they'll just landfill it because it's not enough. It's not worth the effort to sort.
When I went, though, I did the tour, I'm going to say 1.5 years ago now, maybe 2 years. And there's tons of stuff, like all of the things that we're talking about that don't get recycled, that they say still put in your recycling bin. Like I didn't understand why. Like that's still where they want it to go, not with the garbage or the organic waste, maybe because that has a different sorting process and they want to keep it out of that stream, would be my best guess. I'm not sure. If anybody knows, or Shawn, if you know, please feel free to let me know. But lots of the stuff that we know won't get recycled, they still asked to be placed in your blue bag.
Yeah, and just for the record, for all the people watching at home too, please feel to participate. Emma and I are watching the chat. We will answer any questions. If you have any comments, if you have any concerns, if you don't find it interesting and you want us to like move on to stop complaining about plastic recycling, feel free to comment. Because yeah, we want this to be an interactive experience. We want you to learn and participate along with us, and we appreciate you being here. I also have pulled up that list that I had. I did take out, so the top 3 were Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Nestle. I changed out the 4th top one because I wanted to include Tim Hortons, because I feel like that one's particularly, what's what I'm looking for, has to do with Canadians. Yeah, I think Canadians have a real, for some reason, our national identity is tied up with Tim Hortons, even though Tim Hortons isn't a Canadian company. It's very interesting to see how the marketing of Tim Hortons has integrated itself into the nationalism of Canada. And so I thought that'd be a really good one to include in the letter writing campaign, because when I go out picking up garbage, I see a lot of Tim Hortons everywhere. And those like Tim Hortons cups don't get recycled because of the wax coating on the inside. Doesn't get recycled.
Coffee cups.
I can't think of a single material that Tim Hortons uses that is actually recyclable. I don't think there's anything that they use. Maybe like the cardboard that they use for Timbits, but that's about it.
If there's food stuck to it, then no. Like it's the same thing with pizza boxes.
Yeah.
Right? If it's just some grease, yes, they'll recycle it, but if there's chunks, not recycled.
So the other one, the 4th one or the 5th one I had was Unilever, which is a parent company for things like Axe, Dove, Q-tips. I only listed a couple of the brands because they were, so this is what I learned while doing this research as well, is that most of the companies that I know are just the brand companies, and they're all owned by a larger conglomerate of like these massive companies that just own a bunch of smaller companies. And it was really shocking to learn like Mars owns a ton of chocolate bars that isn't just Mars. There's the 6th one on the list is Mandalas International, and they own like most of the crackers and cookies. So like Oreos, Ritz, and like Maynard's gummies. And like if you think about that, like the gummies packages that Swedish berries come in, that's not getting recycled. Same with like the wrapping to Oreos not getting recycled, the trays of Oreos not getting recycled, the packages on Ritz crackers not getting recycled. And then McDonald's was up there at 8. And yeah, and then the other two, I didn't really like recognize them, but there's one they owned like Colgate and Palmolive, so like the dish, like dish soaps, and also like toothpaste tubes. Like they were the companies that actually make the toothpaste tubes, which was another like one that hurt me of finding alternatives to toothpaste. Because you need to brush your teeth. Like it's really important to brush your teeth.
Have you tried those change tabs?
I have actually.
I haven't had either. It's been on my list.
The thing that is holding me back, and this might be digging up controversy, so I'm not going to dig into it a whole bunch. I'm just going to state my personal feeling. They don't have fluorinated tabs. Mm-hmm. And so I'm someone who prefers fluorinated toothpaste because my experience is that it helps my teeth better. And I just like having that in my toothpaste. So that was the reason I haven't switched to those tabs. With people who don't know what we're talking about, they're little tabs of toothpaste that are like dried, and then you put them on in your mouth or on your tooth brush, and then you get them wet, and then it's like toothpaste in your mouth, and you can get a little jar. I'm blanking on the company's name that makes them.
I think they're based in Calgary. Change Toothpaste.
Yeah. So yeah, I
carries them. I'm assuming Earth's General does. I feel like they carry everything.
Yeah, they do. As soon as they get fluorinated ones, I will switch. But yes, I like that there's a solution to that, and I like that there's a reusable solution to that where you can actually get a jar, fill it up, and then when you need more, take your jar back and fill it. Which is shout out to Earth's General Store and shout out to Bulk Barn for having those. And Replenish.
Sure probably Cartman, I'm assuming, would have them.
Nice. Yeah, Change Toothpaste. If anyone wants to go check them out. Are We Real? Are We Hyper Real has tagged them in the chat. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Should you feel so obligated? So go ahead.
So the other thing I tried with toothpaste, it's just I was worried I don't have great enamel. But I tried, there's a recipe where you use coconut oil, baking soda, and peppermint essential oil. And I found like it seemed to work well. I was just worried if I use it all the time that it's too abrasive and it was ruining the finish in my teeth. And I've also found charcoal toothpaste in a little glass jar as well. So there are a couple like oral health care alternatives out there, but I think everybody kind of, do your research, do what works for you. What works for one won't work for all.
Yeah, I charcoal's always one that's interests me because I used it for a little bit, and then I read some articles that were saying that like charcoal isn't the best thing for your teeth, is that there can have like long-term consequences. But sometimes I don't know what information to trust when it's things like that.
Yeah.
I try and have conversations with my doctor or my dentist because I feel like it's more tangible to talk to my family doctor or my dentist about things like that because they are the medical professionals that I know, and it's not just someone on the internet who I don't really know where that message is coming from. Because we do live in an age of information, and not all of that information is always correct information. So it's important to understand your sources and try and disseminate what the useful and truthful information is, as controversial as something like that may be. But I don't know. I think everyone has to do what's best for them when it pertains to their bodies. So yeah. That hopefully I can get that letter writing campaign up and going for March, and we can start with Coca-Cola and work our way down, and it can really feel like as a collective we're taking action on demanding that these large transnational corporations are going to take responsibility for their packaging and for the things that they produce, which kind of ties in. Go ahead.
Also for the stuff that they're giving away, like one of the things that has been driving me absolutely crazy is anytime, like we don't get fast food in my family often, but I do have a 10-year-old stepson and a partner who like they enjoy their takeout every once in a while. And of course, I'm thankful for all these plant-based burgers popping up around because now I feel like I can partake when we're having our lazy nights. But every single time we say no ketchup, no cutlery, no napkins. We say it when we order, we say it at the window when we pay, and we say it when we collect our food at the next window. And all the time. Like I just gave away a bag full of single wrapped ketchups. Thankfully, somebody had use for them in the Buy Nothing group that I'm in for my community. But like, that's so much unnecessary waste. Like just unnecessary, like unneeded, unwanted. And that costs them money too. Like even from a financial standpoint, you'd think they would care a little bit more than they do. Like they're literally throwing money in the garbage. So that's another big one that's on, I'm also a fan of writing letters. So that's it when it's McDonald's month or any kind of fast food, anything like that infuriates me.
As Shamir just commented in for your letter writing campaign, would you partner with organizations outside of Edmonton? Absolutely. We have a pretty good working relationship with Plastic Free Calgary. What's their organization called?
Plastic Free YYC.
Yeah, Plastic Free YYC. I would love to partner up with them and partner up with anyone we could to heighten the impact of the letter writing campaign. I think that's a great idea. For those who don't know, Shamir Turner is running for city council, so one of the candidates that you can go check out. That kind of helps plug our Waste for Edmonton is doing a questionnaire about waste in the city for our municipal election in October. I think I can pull up the questions right now just so people know. So what we were doing was we came up with these 3 questions about as it pertains to waste in the city of Edmonton. And there we go, Plastic YYC. Or Plastic Free YYC is the Calgary one.
Harvey Hyperreal is on it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, seriously, we would be a mess without you. Thank you. So at Waste for Edmonton, we decided that we wanted to participate in the municipal election in some way, shape, or form to help not only engage the candidates, but engage citizens and maybe bridge the gap to something that doesn't get talked about as much as we would like it to get talked about. So with the election coming up in October, it's important that you participate and you vote. Make sure you do your research on all the candidates. And we're here to help you do some of that research. So we have sent a questionnaire out to all of the candidates, and as they continue announcing, we will also keep sending them to the new candidates right up until the election, and we're going to publicly post their answers to those questions. We aren't going to take a political stance on any of the candidates as an organization, because we will work with any government representation that happens to win a democratic election. We just want change as it pertains to waste reduction in the city of Edmonton. So the 3 questions we sent them were, what are your thoughts on waste reduction on both a personal and a societal level? 2, what are your thoughts on the city of Edmonton's waste management system and what changes would you advocate for? And 3, do you support the city of Edmonton implementing a strategy and/or bylaw that restricts single-use items? And do you support using Waste for Edmonton's proposed framework for the city of Edmonton's single-use plastic bylaw as a basis for developing a single-use reduction strategy and bylaw? Why or why not? So we point blank asked the candidates if they would support our framework for a bylaw for single-use plastics, and I'm really excited to see all of the answers that we get from all the different candidates. For those of you who don't know, about two and a half years ago now, I think it was, Waste for Edmonton created a framework for a single-use plastics ban / bylaw in the city of Edmonton. In early 2020, late 2019, City Council actually was bringing it to committee to discuss it and start to build that framework into an actual bylaw. And then COVID hit, and that kind of derailed those discussions around the bylaw, because for those of you who remember, at the beginning of COVID, we didn't know how COVID was spread. And so there was a lot of fear that it was surface contact. So whenever single-use plastic bans kind of became a taboo topic to bring up because people were scared about a pandemic. Since then, we've learned that it's way more like droplets and air transmission, and that surface-to-surface contact or transmission really doesn't happen. I think it was in the fall, there was a big press release from a bunch of scientists around the globe who advocated for grocery stores letting us bring our reusable grocery bags to the grocery store because it was proven not to be a vector for COVID transmission. So that was really huge. I know for me personally, the first couple months of the pandemic, grocery shopping was just heart-wrenching because I had to use like single-use plastic bags. But yeah, now we know that
boxes from the shelf.
That was a good one too. Yeah.
Style shopping wherever I went. I'm like, this display box is almost empty. That's coming home with me.
But yeah, so that's the we're going to be posting those candidate responses not only on our website but also on our social media pages in a more like digestible way, and also if you want to see the proposed framework, you can go to wastefreeedmonton.ca and check it out. It's really cool. I think it's a very great framework for a bylaw. I think it's very realistic and also accommodating to accessibility issues. And it's just a great piece of proposed legislation. So if you want to check that out, also feel free to engage your city council candidates and your mayoral candidates on your own. Press them to be like, I'm not going to vote for you unless you support waste reduction in the city of Edmonton. Like you go, if you take whatever ball and run with it. I fully support messaging candidates and grilling them on their waste habits. That was a bit of a tangent.
No, that was great. I was just going to say too, if you're not familiar with our proposed framework, it is available on wastefree.ca. So yeah, an absolutely great resource. I think it's an awesome document. I just realized though, not to circle back too much, do we want to touch on the other stuff, like how to know if something will or will not get recycled? Okay, so I know Shawn mentioned at the beginning when I was having issues logging in that only, I think you said 9% gets recycled. I think that's for the States. I think we're a whopping 2% ahead of them at 11%, unless my information is updated.
When I checked, when I double checked my numbers earlier today, it was Environment Canada that said 9% gets recycled, but 4% is used in like energy creation recovery. So that's probably, you probably saw the combined number.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, so 9%. So when you are buying your stuff, there's like 4 kind of like, will it be recycled tests that I do. The first one is size. So if it's like not bigger than the palm of your hand, like think your lids for your milk jugs or the tiny little like Kinder Surprise style like plastic things, or any piece of plastic that without manipulating it is smaller than the palm of your hand, not going to get recycled. Like it's just too difficult. Any plastic cutlery, like really little things like that, not getting recycled. Straws, like anything little, not getting recycled. If it is not white or clear, the color has a really huge impact. Like if it's a really bright color or a dark color, that's a lot harder to recycle into something new because it has to be recycled into something darker. So size is a factor. Sorry, Shawn.
Just as a tidbit there that can kind of circle around to our holiday waste campaign and our holiday episode when we talked about wrapping paper, why it couldn't be recycled is because of the dye and the dark colors. So that's a nice time.
Ew. Some of them, the finish, lots of them have glitter on them. Yeah, the worst. Yes, so size, color. Color is a really big, which really frustrates me when you see plastic for food that you know is brand new plastic, because it has to be in order to be used with food, and it's like black or bright blue or a bright color. So you know it's brand new plastic, and you know it's not going to stand much of a chance of being recycled into something new. I'm just like, why? So yes, shape or size, color, the stretch test I know you talked about earlier for bags. So when you poke your thumb through or try to give a little tug, if it's not going to stretch or give at all, likely will not be recycled. If it does give a little bit, then hopefully it does stand a chance. Containers though, so I know I talked earlier, if your lid is on any kind of container, like even this, if I put this in the bin with the lid on, not getting recycled. So take the lid off. The lid won't get recycled because it's too small, but the rest of the container should. And crinkling, like similar to with bags, how you can do the stretch test. If you crinkle your food container, like think of a clamshell, how you could squeeze it and it really gives, it's quite brittle. Anything that's crinkly like that probably won't get recycled. Did you see the article, Shawn? It came out a couple years ago about, I wrote down the numbers because it was unreal. In Calgary, 2,000 tons of clamshells were being stored because they were hoping to sell them to be recycled, but there wasn't a market for it. So 2,000 tons ended up getting sent to the landfill after they accumulated $330,000 in the cities.
No!
Like that happened in Alberta recently.
And
So,
you know what? Why I think, just to build off of that, why I think this conversation is important for us to have. Like, it's important for everyone to have, but particularly Albertans, because I don't know if a lot of Albertans realize it, but Albertans create the most waste out of all of Canadians per person by a pretty absurd amount. Like, it's a couple 100 pounds extra per person in Alberta. Like, I think it was about 900 pounds of plastic per person, or per waste per person, per year. And the next highest was, I think, Ontario, and it was like 600. So it was like 300 pounds more per person. So I think it's really important for Albertans to have this conversation, because we are pretty guilty of waste creation. Not to shame Albertans, but that's just the facts.
Facts are facts. And also tons of, I think lots of people have this in their mind, that lots of the waste that ends up in the oceans, plastic waste especially, is from places that are on a coast. But I think something like 80% of it, I will have to check my numbers. I have it somewhere in one of my school scripts. Tons of it comes from places that are landlocked. Like, our garbage is still ending up polluting places that are so far away from us, especially when we think of how it gets transported and where ultimately it ends up. All of the plastic waste that we're creating isn't staying here with us. So.
Also, I just saw that Change Toothpaste joined. Hello, we mentioned you earlier. Someone shouted you out, and I'm glad you were able to see that we were live. It's so nice to see you here. We appreciate what you do. We appreciate your dedication to having a business that tries to eliminate packaging. So thanks for all you do. Huge shout out to Change Toothpaste. If you're following us, go follow them. Go buy their product. Yeah, we appreciate you. So thank you.
We see you. We see you.
We see you. We see you. Just what that made me think of is earlier in the year of 2020, I think it was in April or March, we had a screening of the story of plastic. And it was an incredible and enlightening documentary about the story of plastic and how it ends up in our oceans. And yeah, that was one of the things that they touched on, was that just because it's ending up in the oceans, most of that plastic is coming from landlocked municipalities or provinces or states, and it's just because it's getting shipped outwards. And so I think that responsibility for our waste and accountability for our waste is really important, especially in today's age. I feel like particularly the last decade in just humanity, has been a lot of conversations around accountability, around the accountability for our actions, the accountability for our words, the accountability for our environment. You know, if I had to, like, a lot of people will blame like cancel culture and that's what they'll call it, but I think it really is just the emergence of accountability. And I think maybe that maybe comes out in more extreme ways, but the root of it is the emergence of accountability as being a real and tangible tool for humanity. And I just think that that's an uncomfortable thing to face, not only in our own personal lives with the language that we use and how we treat each other, but also our consumption and the accountability for our waste. And even though those conversations are uncomfortable, it's incredibly important for us to have conversations like this, like you and I, Emma, and then people can join and add in, but also hopefully people can take these back to their friends, back to their families, back to their partners, back to their roommates, back to their dog or cat, and, you know, talk about not only your consumption habits, but your waste creation habits, because that's a whole other side of life that we've been ignoring for a long time. And we talked about that earlier, about how, you know, recycling was sold as this fairy tale solution to our plastics. And we find out a couple decades later that it's pretty much a total lie, and that it's not actually happening in the way that we believed that it was happening. And so I'm glad that we have this conversation. I'm glad that, you know, extended producer responsibility is a thing that's emerging. Change toothpaste, adding in, we believe that education and conscious choices will make the difference. I agree. Education and conscious choices are incredibly important. But kind of like what I've been saying all night is that it's also it's the individual conscious choices, but it also needs to be the collective choice and the collective power of demanding action and demanding regulations for plastic creation and extended producer responsibility. I suggest anyone who has free time or interest to look into extended producer responsibility. It's not a fix-all problem. It's not something that is going to magically make the plastic pollution crisis go away, but it is something that is going to prevent large corporations from downloading the cost of waste management onto individuals and onto municipalities and onto taxpayers, and actually hold those companies that create the products that aren't recycled and get disposed of improperly for paying for the infrastructure to make sure that those get dealt with appropriately, on top of using materials that are more sustainable, biodegradable, and overall reduction of plastics.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
That's my tangent on individual choices matter, but the collective is more powerful.
I want to piggyback off of what you were talking about when it comes to accountability. And I think it is really important that we do kind of audit our waste and we assess our habits, and we take note of what types of waste we are creating. And I know this conversation has been lots of doom and gloom, and this won't get recycled, and this is just garbage, and this is going to exist. But there is this initiative that has kind of got lots of us at Wastewise Edmonton, we're paying attention to it, we're learning more about it, and that is eco-bricking. So it's not like a be-all end-all solution, but it is a way that we can take responsibility for our own waste. I've actually started, this one's my very first Ecobrick. It's very low calorie, but tons of plastic waste that cannot be recycled is in here. So the idea is you use a plastic bottle to contain all of it. I need to do more research still, but from what I understand, it's supposed to stop it from leaching. You can use these as building blocks for things like stools or benches, or I've seen online they have, like, you can build them in earth, and then if you ever wash all of that away, you can reuse them. So for me, what appeals is, like, I know all of the plastic in here, it's not going to end up flying away in the ocean, and it's not going to end up getting caught in landfill, and it's at least contained. So I don't know if I will be building something bigger with this, but I think it's another great example of how when the community comes together, collectively, we could do something with it. And it's also, when I was reading on the website, the idea isn't to like make an Ecobrick and drop it off somewhere. And they specifically say, like, when you drop them off, you're still discarding them. You're not taking accountability of your own waste. Like, you're not owning your own waste. So the idea isn't to just offload them on someone else. It's to come together with your community and find a purpose for them and turn all of it into a new product or a new item. So this has been on my mind lately. I have more to learn, and we'll have from Waste Free Edmonton some more information available about those soon.
Yeah, and I'm so glad, because this concept of an Ecobrick was really what was the inspiration behind tonight's Wine and Waste. And we kind of wanted to do more research about the pros and cons of them, but we thought that plastic recycling and, you know, the plastic pollution crisis is something that Waste for Edmonton really focuses on, and that reduction in consumption is something that we preach as the primary method for reducing our waste and addressing the plastic pollution crisis. But this Ecobrick is something that actually started in, I can't remember which country in particular, but somewhere in South Africa, as a means for having cheap building material, because they didn't have access to you know, tons of steel or concrete, but they had tons of plastic and bottles, and so they would cut up this plastic, stuff it into the bottles, and I can't remember what the weight is, but there's a certain density that it has to be this weight to make sure that it's a sturdy building material. But then they were using it to build walls and build, like, I saw a well and planters. It's really cool if you want to look up Ecobricks in your own time. It's a really unique community around it. There's quite in-depth information about the possibilities of plastic sequestering, which I thought was a really interesting concept that I'd never heard of until I looked into Ecobricks. But yeah, I love that you're using it as kind of like a waste audit too,
Yeah.
right? Because can we see your bottle again? Can you hold it up
It's
like
mostly garbage. You could see beef jerky.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so you have to, every time you finish one, it'll pump out a serial number for you. So I've got my serial number here and the weight here. So this is 370 grams. And this was actually on like the lower side. I had to add more into it before it would be like accepted as an okay Ecobrick. But you can see, like, there's a chip bag. I think that's M&Ms. Like, lots of this is food packaging that I should be very proud of. But yeah, there's tons in here. Whenever I get my plant-based milks, you know how underneath the cap they have those little plastic tabs to keep it fresh? Those are in here.
I love that though, because it's a way to visualize things that you would normally just be throwing out and getting rid of, but you're saving them and you're stuffing them into a bottle, and then you can kind of see, like, gauge the time of being like, whoa, this is how much stuff would have ended up in the landfill had I not cut it up and saved it in this bottle. So yeah, we're going to definitely be exploring the idea of an Ecobrick more. If you want to start your own Ecobrick and tell us about it, you can tag Waste for Edmonton, and Emma and I will see it and be like, cool, like, we inspired you to make an Ecobrick. I know I'm going to begin my journey making one, just to see how it goes, and as a waste audit for myself and my partner, because it's important to know and see the waste that you're creating.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of our inspiration for the discussion tonight.
One thing I will say is, if you are thinking of making one and you are thinking of combining with your community, you want to make sure you're using the same bottles so that they stack together nicely. So for example, I know our wonderful communications manager did some research and he chose this bottle. It's a 1 liter President's Choice bottle because it is flat. It doesn't have, like when you think of the Coca-Cola bottle, there's lots of in and out, and it wouldn't be as sturdy for building. And that's something else to think of. Like I wouldn't have bought this bottle if not for the Ecobrick, because I don't buy single-use plastic bottles. But for me, knowing like wildlife is not going to be eating this, and nobody's getting caught or tangled up in any of this garbage outside, it's not getting blown away in the wind. So for me, I felt better knowing that at least it's contained. So I bought the stupid plastic bottle to stuff all my garbage in. But that's something that, you know, everybody kind of assess what's best for you. Like if you know you're not going to fill one, don't go out and buy one just because like, oh, hey, now there's this solution for all this plastic garbage that I wouldn't have created otherwise. But if it's waste that you are making anyways, if it's waste that is not going to be recycled, for me so far, this is something pretty exciting that I want to learn more about.
Yay! So we went a little over time, but I think that's fair considering we had a little bit of a tech hiccup at the beginning.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
You don't have to apologize. It's nothing to apologize for. And I think it's great. Like, I feel like we could just talk for hours, but we want to respect people's evenings. And I want to make sure that people aren't getting sick of hearing my voice. You have a lovely voice, Emma. I'm sure that people would love to hear you monologue about waste all night.
Oh, I wouldn't be so sure.
I do want to...
Calendar here. As we like to meet the first Wednesday of every month. So if we're looking ahead, that looks like it'll be Wednesday, April 7th to dog ear on your calendars. If you'd like to join us again, Shawn and I will confirm that with a social media post soon so that you know when you can join us back for Wine and Waste. If there's any topics that you're super curious about that you really want us to get into, please feel free to let us know.
Yeah, I wanted to end with a couple things because there's quite a bit going on. We were talking about sorting your waste and how confusing sorting your recycling can be. The city of Edmonton has this amazing app called the Wastewise App, and you can literally just type in anything into the app and it'll tell you whether to throw it in the garbage or recycle it or take it to the eco station. So it's a really handy app. It's free. It's fantastic. If you type in your address, it will also remind you every day that your garbage is being picked up, which, speaking of garbage pickup, our garbage is changing in the city of Edmonton. The city of Edmonton is finally instituting source-separated organics. Yay! So in lieu of learning how to sort your garbage, we're all going to be responsible for sorting our garbage more. So your organics and food scraps will be separate from your garbage, and that will be separate from your recycling. So it's even more important for you to learn how to properly sort your garbage because the city is forcing you to. The cart rollout is going to be happening this spring and summer. The city of Edmonton is offering information sessions. The first one was actually tonight, so if you're here, you probably missed it. But the good thing is that they're going to be doing a bunch more of those sessions, and also Waste for Edmonton is planning on hosting the debriefs or the unfiltered sessions, where after the City of Edmonton sessions, you can come hang out with us, and we can kind of have more of a dialogue of what it means to sort your waste, how you can reduce your waste if you're nervous that you're going to fill the bin too soon or that your family consumes too much and the bin's going to be overflowing. You can come hang out with us and we'll talk you through it. We'll give you some tips. If you need to, you can air your grievances, but I prefer for everyone to be constructive and positive because this is a change that is happening, and it'll be a change for the better. So watch for those. Not only the cart rollout from the City of Edmonton, but also the debriefs and unfiltered sessions with Waste for Edmonton, because we are here to satisfy all your waste reduction community needs. Download the Wastewise app. So yeah, I think that is all I wanted to say for now. Emma, you got anything to add?
That's all she wrote for me. It was
cool
hanging out with you. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a blast as always, and we look forward to connecting with you again next month.
Yeah, it was so nice to see you, Emma. It was so nice to see all of you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for making comments. follow Waste for Edmonton on all our social media. Go check out our single-use plastic bylaw framework. It's really cool, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.